participants here at the virtual platform for the International E-Conference. The topic of today's International E-Conference is Journalists Tackling Disinformation during COVID-19. The college undertakes many innovative activities for students, researchers, teachers, intellectuals, academicians, and all these activities are flourishing and going on very successfully. And it is due to the management and strong academic leadership of Honorable Principal Dr. M. Ambedkar sir, who is also Chief Organizer and Chairperson of International Webinar Series and International Conferences. On behalf of Organizing Committee of International E-Conference and Sri Kumar Swami College, Ausa, I heartily greet you, sir, as the chairman for today's International E-Conference. Today, I feel immense pleasure to inform all the delegates and participants that we have among us Honorable Dignitary and Keynote Speaker Prachi Vashisht ma'am from USA, who is going to enlighten us on the topic Journalists Tackling Disinformation during COVID-19. But before the starting of the keynote speech, I would like to have Honorable Principal Dr. M. Ambedkar sir for his opening remarks. Please, sir. Welcome, sir. Uh, Thank you, sir. Now, I do not want to remain in between the keynote speaker and audience because they are eager to listen today's keynote speech on the topic Journalists Tackling Disinformation during COVID-19. So I request you, ma'am, to start your presentation and keynote speech, please.
Thank you so much. Let me share my screen with you guys so that we can talk a little bit more about my topic. First of all, thank you so much for having me here, Dr. Pedkar, Mr. Prakash. I really respect what is happening here, the fact that faculty, students, academicians are coming together in order to push their knowledge forward in different domains. I think that's imperative for everybody's growth, for mutual discussion, for a healthy dialogue. So I'm so excited that I got the opportunity to talk about a research that I did, something that I'm very, very passionate about, which is disinformation and misinformation. And so, if you start with the concept of disinformation, the point is, what is disinformation? What is misinformation? And how do we separate these two key areas? The first thing that would be is whenever you open your phone, or whenever you look at a Twitter message, or whenever you look at your WhatsApp, or whenever you look at your Facebook, you see all of this information that is populating your feed. That can be religious information, that could be political information, that could be personal information, that can be any form of information that you're taking in from all these social media platforms. In addition to this, you're also going to newspapers, you're also talking to people and taking all of these facts that are given to you. But my question to everybody here is whether these facts and information are actually credible or not, right? That is the big concept of disinformation and misinformation. When I was in India, I was again and again and again coming across news wherein people were being killed because of some WhatsApp rumor. And how does that happen? How does a population take something online on their phone and take it to be true and completely honest? One of the incidents that really moved me, that I specifically remember, were these two young men who were going to a small getaway town in Assam. Their name was Niloptal and Abhijit. And 2018, at the same time, there was a rumor going on WhatsApp in that local village that there are kidnappers on loose. And so the local public was not educated enough to understand that that was not a credible information, you know. And they were so panicked that when they saw these young men who were in their jeans, who had tattoos, who were just there to, enjoy and have a holiday, they actually lynched them to death, which means the mob of 100 people came in together and they beat these guys to death. So those were like innocent lives lost. And what was the reason behind it? A WhatsApp rumor. And that pushed me to investigate more into India's disinformation crisis. The first thing that I would want everybody to take away from this presentation would be that misinformation is different from disinformation. So, all of the misinformation entails for something that is spread without an intent. Sometimes you don't know the facts, sometimes you don't know if things are credible or not. That is misinformation. Disinformation is when you intentionally perpetuate a lie or a fact in order to cause a consequence. So we can talk about any medical worker who pushes out an uncredible information because they want to have people buy their product. That is disinformation. Now let's come to disinfodemic. So when COVID-19 was happening, if you opened your WhatsApp, you saw all of the rumors like cow dung or cow urine or tying garlic or inhaling lemon or inhaling peppermint oil. All of these were the remedies that could help COVID-19. None of these remedies were scientifically studied. None of these remedies had any research backing them up. And my question is, when we're educated people, why are we not questioning the information that is being delivered to us? A simple question of why. Is this right? Could have prevented so much mishappening that happened during COVID 19, up until to a point wherein all social media organizations were then being asked by the governments and big organizations like World Health Organization to fact check every single information that they were being pushed out. One of the very flabbergasting rumor was the kahada, कि make a herbal concoction of this herbal remedies, take some tulsi, take some ginger, take some garlic, and it will go away and help with COVID-19. While there might be some scientific backing that ginger is good for your health and garlic is good for your health, there was no scientific backing that it actually supported COVID-19 at that point, up to a point wherein it was reported that drinking too much of herbal concoctions actually gave people throat and mouth ulcers. So these were all the misinformations that journalists then had to tackle. And in addition to that, even the healthcare workers, our doctors, our nurses, were being discriminated by the society, right? As if they were COVID 19 carriers. Now, I understand that people really want to be preventative and protective of their health. But there were instances where doctors were being stoned. Doctors were being completely thrown away from these societies. These people who were actually doing their best to prevent COVID 19 from spreading and healing us. So, when disinfodemic, which is basically the disinformation that was going around and the pandemic happened in India, I reached out to journalists who were on there breaking news, and I asked them, how are you dealing with this pressure? Like, what is going on? How do you break news 24/7 into a situation wherein nobody has any science behind it? And how are you making sure that whatever goes out there is credible? And a lot of time, this disinfodemics were impacting journalism and credible news in India. Now, the problem here is that we're dealing with a country that doesn't have high level of literacy, right? And this country also doesn't have high levels of digital media literacy. In combination of that, we have cheap smartphone packages, and we also have low prices of internet. And that is the best breeding ground for disinformation, because you can share anything, you can click on anything, you can believe anything, and the cost to literally that is zero. There is a very famous quote about social media platform, and the quote is basically called as that: if it is being given to you for free, it has to have a cost. And so every single time journalists were seeing that all of this information was going and perpetuating and propagating on social media, even though it was free, it had a cost. And the cost was the health implication that was happening in the country. The cost was the journalistic implications that were happening in the country. The cost were also the religious implications that were happening in the country, wherein we took away a minority in India and decided to completely shun them off, because we thought that particular minority is the reason why that we have COVID-19, while there was no scientific studying behind it. So, when it came to journalists tackling it as first hand responders, the thing was that a lot of time the journalism in this country is not adept and apt and accurate and trained in order to deal with such crisis. One of the crises can just be the fact that newsrooms in India don't have scientific training. They don't have the technical knowledge to understand science papers. They don't have the technical knowledge to understand and explain jargons, right? Now imagine breaking news for millions of people when you don't have idea of what is happening behind you. So the question here to ask is, as educators, as students, as academicians, the questions that we need to be asking ourselves the question that we need to be asking ourselves is, are we providing the correct scientific information to our population? Are we providing the correct technical information to our population, specifically with chat GPT and artificial intelligence taking over the country right now? The second thing that really impacted journalists was WhatsApp. Now, I really want you to understand that there is Facebook, that there is WhatsApp, that there is Instagram, there is Twitter, there is Pinterest. Your young kids, your older parents, and you yourself are using the benefits of social media. It has fantastic connectivity. But imagine a platform being so powerful that it is misleading an entire population. And I'm not just specifically talking about in India. Here in the United States, people were willing to believe that if they drink Clorox, which is a toilet cleaner, a disinfectant, they will disinfect their body and eventually kill COVID-19 bacteria. And this is an educated population that I'm talking about. So journalists had no idea how to filter WhatsApp information, as they know that a lot of their sources are also on WhatsApp. And that led to isolation. That led to journalists thinking over and over and over again as to how they can actually help and prevent this COVID-19 disinfodemic in India to happen. In addition to that, there was a specific government pressure that kept on bugging journalists over and over again. If you would see, every single journalist that you would talk to would say that post 2014 there was a different working environment, and pre 2014 there has been a different working environment. And why? Because press intimidation has really risen in India. In 2014, and between 2014 and 2019, 40 journalists has been killed in India, and that's a big number for a population that's work is to question the government. In addition to this, the India's press freedom has also fallen from the ranking has dropped to a 150 in a total of 181 countries all over the world. So the point is, are we actually allowing those young journalists, those few people who are willing to contribute to the betterment of the society, and are we allowing them to give that safe environment that the government needs to give them so that disinformation in India can be prevented? So, technical information, lack of scientific information was a big barrier for disinformation in India. Lack of government support was a big barrier for disinformation in India. But most importantly, even the lack of news organization support was imperative and the biggest problem in India. So, newsrooms, when they employ young journalists, have this idea of passion, right? That you can do anything and everything in passion, that you should have no work life boundaries, you should work 24/7, the media never sleeps. I remember when I had my first internship, I was 19 years old. I was working with a media organization, and I was so confused that when they did not give me an off on Independence Day. And I was like, isn't Independence Day supposed to be off for the entire nation? And they said not for India. There had been instances wherein journalists work, even interns work 7 days a week for 12 hours without getting paid. Now, these newsroom practices, this lack of investment in the growing technical changes in their own journalists, is also mentally exhausting the reporters of the country. They don't have it in them to take the responsibility over and over again, to be overworked, to not have the sufficient compensation being given to them, not have enough money being given to them, and not have enough time given to them. And the third thing is the newsrooms are also not willing to identify that news is changing, news consumption is changing, right? You cannot follow the same news models that you were following even 5 years ago with the generation of chat GPT, with the generation of artificial intelligence, with the generation of internet, right? So there are some specific fact checking training that can actually equip reporters to be more credible, to be a step ahead of the public, so that whenever they share something with you guys, they're completely adept and informed about what is happening. This lack of investment from newsroom then came out to be a huge problem to young journalists that I was talking everywhere. And the third thing was isolation, and mental health issue. Every single profession that we work in has issues of mental health. It has issues of isolation. But COVID 19 was such a specific period wherein the population completely shut down for the right reasons, and in addition to that, nobody was willing to cooperate with reporters. This mental exhaustion, at the end of the day, even doctors, reporters, first hand responders, ministers, all of these peoples who come out for the public are human, and they got exhausted. And all of these things, little by little, step by step, started to contribute into what came out to be a very uncredible coverage for the country, a very uncredible information that was being spread out to the world. A specific incident that I would like to point out that a participant of mine shared was that her uncle was living in Delhi and had no idea that COVID 19 was even happening. And she was very flabbergasted, and she asked her uncle as to why was the reason why he did not know that there is something like COVID 19 happening in the world. Turns out his main source of information was a particular news channel who was covering everything and anything but the COVID 19 crisis. Why? Because there was a level of distraction that wanted to be happened in the country. Now, the thing is that when these things are happening over and over and over again, how do we actually deal with it? What is the way forward, right? I can talk about disinformation. I can tell you to be careful on your WhatsApp. I can talk about misinformation. But the most here is actually to have responsible tech. There is a growing field of responsible tech and responsible AI, which is something which comes back to every single person of the society, right? So there are fact checking training that must be incorporated into curriculums. There are fact checking training that must be incorporated into corporate trainings, so that you know that every single information on Google is not true, so that you know that anybody can build a very beautiful website and then completely punch out uncredible information, and not just for COVID 19, not just politically, even for religious purposes, even for personal purposes. The point is to understand that policymakers on the small level, on the big level, have to understand that 2024 is the year when 75 countries all over the world, 74 countries all over the world are actually having their elections. And elections nowadays are dependent on what? Your WhatsApp forward. What is the source of information? A random video that you saw on internet glorifying a particular candidate, which is completely uncredible. Have you seen those young teenage girls who have their pictures morphed, or have you seen actors who have their 5-second videos and clips being played on repeat out of context? So the way forward is responsible tech, and this is going to be a very imperative political policy based tech education field in the future. Why? Because technological advancement are not stopping anytime soon. With that, disinformation and misinformation is not stopping anytime soon. And with that, more impacts are going to happen over and over again. So the question is, can we put more fact checking training into our day to day life? Can we, as educators, can we, as researchers, can we, as reporters, make sure that we go out of our way to learn how to distinguish between fake news and a credible news, right? Can we ask our organizations, can we ask our team to give us the resources needed for this technical information? This election season, can we ask these kind of right questions to the policy makers as to what is happening on the rural level, on the ground level, wherein people are being aware about all of these lies that are being perpetuated online? And most importantly, can we ask ourselves before we forward a WhatsApp message, before we share something on Facebook, before we share something on Twitter, can we ask ourselves whether it is credible or not? Are we willing to take that 2 minutes it takes to fact check a single thing that has been going in this world? Because here's the thing, right now you can take a particular message and forward it, and it will have no impact, and then you can forward something again and it will have no impact, and then you can forward something again and you can think that this is really important and it would not have an impact. It would not have an impact until a small man in India who's trying to just make a living gets into the consequences, gets into the clubs of these WhatsApp rumors that you have been forwarding, and loses its life. For example, a transgender woman in India was again beaten to death. Why? Because there was a WhatsApp rumor which said that there was a kidnapper out there in loose. So I really want everybody here to take a step back and realize that sharing means responsibility. Whatever you share online means you take responsibility. Specifically with trolls, specifically when people can create fake account, if we don't take that individual responsibility, disinformation and misinformation is always going to be there. And it is going to cause havoc in the society, but on a very subtle level, and then on a big level, and then on a level that can never be taken back. We are all recovering from COVID at some point, in some capacity, even right now in life. Things will never be the same like the way they were post 2020. But the thing is, now the tech reforms will never stop. AI will only come in future in order asking you guys to get better at what you're doing. But if we're not informed, if we're not judicious, and if we're not careful, we are participating in something bigger that can happen and can cause permanent damages. So this is what is the basics of misinformation and disinformation, which perpetuated and progressed and strengthened itself medically during the COVID-19 era. I have thoroughly enjoyed researching about it. I have thoroughly enjoyed learning more about it and being more careful about what I share online. And if there is any giveaway that I can give anyone here, is before you tweet, before you share, take a step back, take a breather, and ask yourself, do I have the credible information to support this? And if you don't share it. Because then you help the society, even if at all it's not visible, but it is. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for hearing me talk, and I really appreciated being here.
Good evening to all. Thank you, respected principal, Dr. M. Bedkar sir, and organizing committee members. Today's resource person, uh, Prachi ma'am, presented very nicely, and he explained uh, this session is knowledgeable and informative session. I think that why fake news is spread more widely through the social media. This is my question, ma'am.
So the thing is, and thank you so much for that question, and I think that's a right question to ask. The thing is that, as I mentioned, we're living in the times wherein smartphones, everybody has a phone, and every phone has internet. So smartphones and these technologies have become cheaper, and they have become more accessible. In the same time, people don't have digital media literacy, right? People in India don't even are not even literate as a population. And digital media literacy is that next level of information you need in order to be aware. So when social media is close to being free, and there is not enough technical or information and knowledge about how to handle social media and technology, that's when disinformation really strengthens. That's when, whenever the thing is presented to you online, people are willing to believe it. Second is the common consensus that when everybody starts sharing something, there is a subconscious belief, as in, like, whatever is being shared is definitely going to be right. So we're dealing with a country wherein internet is almost free, and there is no knowledge how to use the internet, and no knowledge about the consequences of the misuse of internet, which is why disinformation is getting very strengthened in the country. And as I mentioned, we have to incorporate technical and scientific training in our education from early on, so that we build young people to be immune to this disinformation, because it happens at every level. And I think that is the strongest reason why disinformation is becoming powerful in our nation.
Very excellent presentation, Prachi ma'am, and thank you so much, respected principal, Dr. M. Bedkar sir. Thank you, sir.
Hello. Good evening, Dr. Bedkar sir, Principal sir, the organizing committee, and Prachi ma'am. Wonderful presentation you have made, and really very important subject nowadays, because when we are learning or listening some kind of a news, uh, people are nowadays making news for special for rating nowadays, the TV channels, or you'll find some people are giving paid news, and that paid news is also, to what extent we have to accept it. That is also one of the very important questions. So the reliability of the news is one of the very important thing. You were talking about COVID-19, and I'm from the health sector, so naturally, we should have a right knowledge of what is the magnitude of the problem, and then only the government are finding out the resources and everything. So I think fake news definitely will dilute this kind of process. So what do you think about this? Please comment. Thank you, ma'am. Otherwise, your presentation was wonderful, and really, one has to be become very alert about what news we are listening and how we are listening and how we are taking it to the other people. So that is very important. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate your question, and that's the right question to ask, specifically someone who is in the healthcare sector. You're right. Fake news is very much stronger, and news media organizations are not shy away from actually perpetuating them and informing. My best resource when somebody asks me this question is to become independent researchers, right? So go to own credible sources, sort of become your own media person, right? So go to World Health Organization, that is a credible source of information to find medical information. Always ask questions to the information that is being given to you, even on news channels. And if you have a concern about information that is being presented to you, search it. Independently search for yourself and find out whether it's right or not. Turns out, if you look at a journalistic process, it's not actually very different from something that you guys do at your own level. I know that we have to become a little more proactive. We just want to live in a world wherein we can rely on other people for information, but that's not the case. So, the best way would be to start taking your independent research. Second thing, any information that directly impacts your life, your health, your day to day working should always be checked. Should always be checked. Because at the end, if you take a remedy off of Facebook and add it to your body and system, you never know how well it's going to go. You cannot even take medical information based off on somebody else's body, so let alone taking it from Twitter or taking it from WhatsApp. So I think the best way forward is to self independently become our own researcher, our own fact checkers, and most importantly, if there is a source or organization that we trust them. I know media is in crisis right now. I know at this point everybody wants to do anything and everything but believe journalists. But there are many young people and young journalists who are willing to do that kind of fact checking. And if you're willing to believe them, believe them. But the best way forward is to take your own independent research. That is where the difference will happen. That is where you will become aware and you can make other people aware. Keep on questioning people around you whenever they share something on WhatsApp. Just a simple question: what's your source of information for this particular thing that you've shared? That will completely change the game. If you start questioning this, I'm notoriously known in my friends group to always ask everybody, what's the source of this information? Half of the time people don't have any answer for that. So start doing your own independent research and keep on questioning other people who are just giving you random facts. You need to be asking good questions. And thank you so much for asking that question, specifically being in the healthcare field. I completely understand why you want people to be vigilant. So thank you so much.
Yeah, ma'am. They blamed WHO also and the director of World Health Organization also during the time of COVID-19. Various news were there and misleading news were there. So one has to be very ethical in journalism, and one has to be very conscious and keeping our conscience alive. We had to give this news, and even a listener is having a responsibility. What kind of news we should hear and what kind of news we should reject. So thank you very much, ma'am.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
My second question is that, sir.
I feel proud that I'm a part of this family. Thank you.
My second question is that how struggle to combat misinformation and disinformation, particularly on WhatsApp group, ma'am?
So WhatsApp is now under fire. Recently, there was a big hearing here in the United States. It was called the Online Safety Act, wherein they brought all the 5 CEOs from the big media companies and they grilled them on child safety online. So WhatsApp right now is under the fire of many organizations and governments who are completely exhausted by this crisis of disinformation. So they have actually started labeling informations. There is a subtle label. So you cannot forward something to more than 5 people at once, right? That's a restriction they have given to you, that if you want to share something, and that's a forwarded information, which means that you don't even have the original source of that information. The shares are limited. I'm not sure if it's 5 or something, but you can share it to a limited people.
Yeah, it's 5 groups, at the most 5 groups.
Okay, great. Like, so you can only share something to 5 people, right? And second, WhatsApp has a very strong reporting and misinformation policy at the moment, wherein if you report something and it's misinformation and it's being reported over and over and over again, they'll just take down that information after doing their due research. And third thing is, I think more of these companies like Metas are specifically now putting out more funds into online safety. I do believe that it is out of their own personal initiative in order to make an informed society, but it's also because there is a lot of international government pressure that has been happening on these CEOs, that has been happening on the leaders of these social media companies, these media companies. So the best way would be to go to the specific online platform and understand what their misinformation policy is, adhere to that, and then again, just be careful about what you're sharing. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for organizing this meeting. Every day I enjoy it, and I get new and new information. But today's subject was related to disinformation, so I was much more interested in that. I don't have any question because she has cleared all the points, and I am very much sympathetic about it. And I just want to tell that I have seen one movie, The Vaccine War. It was released in September 2023. So if you see that picture, you will get all your doubts cleared, and how the media has to be very careful, how the institutions are to be very careful, how the national policy is to be determined, and how the credit goes to the foreigners, even though our Indian was for it. So I just want to request all of you to see that picture, The Vaccine War. So that's what. I don't have any query because she has cleared all the points what I wanted to ask. And Anand Sukla asked, the question was in my mind. So I'm having no doubt now. But thank you very much, Prachi, madam, and all others. Thank you.
Thank you.
जी जी, सभी को नमस्कार। नमस्ते प्राची मैडम। मैडम, जो फेक न्यूज़ झूठी खबरों की बात आती है, पहले समय में झूठी खबरें जब आती थी तो जैसे ग्रामीण क्षेत्र में आती थी तो गांव में ये कहा जाता था कि ये व्यक्ति को नॉलेज नहीं है और इसको ज्ञान नहीं है, कम लिखा पढ़ा है, इसीलिए इसको मालूम नहीं था, इसने झूठी खबर फैला दी। लेकिन इस टेक्नोलॉजी के ज़माने में झूठी जो खबरें आ रही है वो बहुत शिक्षित, अनुभवी, या तो पत्रकार कह लीजिए या व्यक्ति कह लीजिए, वो फैलाता है। तो ऐसे में क्या करें, आम जनता क्या करेगी? कि एक न्यूज़ आई थी अफगानिस्तान में, जब तालिबान ने अपना कब्जा किया, अभी ज़्यादा पुरानी नहीं है, तो सीरिया की खबर को उससे जोड़ दिया और बहुत ही अच्छे चैनल ने उसको दिखाया, हिंदी चैनल ने। तो एक महिला को सिर में गोली मारते हैं, वहाँ पर कोई एक केस हुआ था और वो न्यूज़ में 6 महीने पहले देख चुका था। तो मुझे बड़ी हैरान हुई, जिस पत्रकार ने वो न्यूज़ मीडिया में प्रस्तुत की चैनल पर, मुझे बड़ा ताज्जुब हुआ। वो मुझे मालूम था कि ठीक है ये घटना सीरिया की है, लेकिन आम व्यक्ति क्या करे? आज सबसे लिखे पढ़ी व्यक्ति ही ये झूठी खबरें फैलाते हैं।
ये क्वेश्चन बहुत अच्छा है जयवीर जी, और ये बहुत ही इन्फॉर्म्ड क्वेश्चन है, क्योंकि जब मैंने पूरा मिस इन्फॉर्मेशन और डिसइंफॉर्मेशन के बारे में बात करी है, मैंने कभी ये नहीं कहा कि क्रेडिबल सोर्सेज वो इंसान नहीं है जो पढ़े लिखे होते हैं, क्योंकि सारे एजुकेटेड और अनएजुकेटेड लोग अब इस क्राइसिस का विक्टिम बन रहे हैं. सो इट्स वेरी नाइस कि आपने इंडिपेंडेंटली आइडेंटिफाई करा अपने आप को, जो कि मैं रिपीटेडली बोल रही हूँ कि हम उस सोसाइटी में अभी नहीं आए हैं जहाँ पे मिस इन्फॉर्मेशन और डिसइंफॉर्मेशन को भी एक ऐसा इशू देखा जाता है. ये चाय पे चर्चा वाला इशू है फेक न्यूज का, ये अभी गवर्नमेंट पॉलिसी लेवल इशू नहीं बना है. तो अभी इंडिपेंडेंट रिसर्च करना बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है. और सही बात है, अगर क्रेडिबल सोर्सेज ऑफ न्यूज है, क्रेडिबल जर्नलिस्ट है, वो आपको अगर कोई फेक न्यूज दिखा रहे हैं तो बिलीव देम कि वो नहीं है एक क्रेडिबल सोर्स ऑफ इंफॉर्मेशन आपके लिए इसके बाद. और आपको फिर अपनी नॉलेज कहीं और डाइवर्ट करनी पड़ेगी, विच इज आइदर डूइंग योर ओन रिसर्च और गोइंग टू अनदर सोर्स ऑफ इंफॉर्मेशन. और ये बहुत कंफ्यूजिंग है. मैं जर्नलिज्म में काफी टाइम से हूँ, उसके बावजूद मेरे को डिफिकल्टी होती है आइडेंटिफाई करने में कि कुछ पॉलिटिशियन ने जो बोला है, कोई डेटा जो गवर्नमेंट से आया है, कोई जर्नलिस्ट कोई चीज रिपोर्ट कर रहा है, वो सही है या नहीं है. और छोटे लेवल पे जब ये मास लोगों के साथ हो रहा है तो फिर इंफॉर्मेशन और रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी तो एजुकेटर्स पे ही आ जाती है. मैंने अपनी प्रेजेंटेशन के बिगिनिंग में बोला था कि हम अपने अगर एजुकेशन करिकुलर में अभी नहीं डालेंगे डिसइंफॉर्मेशन या फैक्ट चेकिंग का एक छोटा सा मॉड्यूल, हम नहीं डेवलप कर पाएंगे एक यंगर सोसाइटी, एक मोर इन्फॉर्म्ड सोसाइटी. जो गांव के लोग हैं, जो लोग हैं जो अनएजुकेटेड है, या जो एजुकेटेड लोग हैं जो क्रेडिबल इंफॉर्मेशन को नहीं ले पा रहे हैं, उन्हें बिलीव कर रहे हैं. ट्रेनिंग बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है आइडेंटिफाई करने के लिए कि क्या ये सिचुएशन एक्चुअली सच है या नहीं. There is a particular technical training called as reverse image searching. Reverse image searching is just for an example for your question. रिवर्स इमेज सर्चिंग क्या करता है, आपको इमेज का सोर्स ढूंढने में हेल्प कर देता है. सो फॉर एग्जाम्पल, अगर उस न्यूज में एक सीरिया की विमेन की इंफॉर्मेशन और पिक्चर यूज हुई है, रिवर्स इमेज सर्च से आप उस पिक्चर का ओरिजिन निकाल सकते हो. और उस पिक्चर का अगर आपने ओरिजिन निकाल लिया तो आप आइडेंटिफाई कर पाओगे कि वेदर दैट पिक्चर इज एक्चुअली वैलिड फॉर दैट पर्टिकुलर न्यूज और नॉट. बट अगेन, ये रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी कम्युनिटी की नहीं है, ये रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी एजुकेटर्स की है, ये रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी पॉलिसी मेकर्स की है. अगेन, डिसइंफॉर्मेशन बहुत न्यू है, टेक्नोलॉजी बढ़ती जा रही है, बट टेक्नोलॉजी को यूज कैसा करना है उस पे इनफ क्वेश्चनिंग और रिसर्च और पॉलिसीज नहीं है. सो इंडिपेंडेंटली रिसर्च करना बट ऑल्सो अपने आप को टेक्निकली इक्विप करना बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट हो गया है. सो thank you so much. I think you have put out a really nice point. Thank you for identifying that news was completely fake. But there is no perfect answer for this. The answer is only to train people to understand what does credible news means. Thank you.
Thank you.
नमस्ते मैडम, आपका उद्बोधन बहुत अच्छा रहा. एक मैं इसमें कुछ और जानना चाहता हूँ कि बहुत बार क्या राष्ट्रीय रक्षा और सुरक्षा से संबंधित जैसे बातें होती है, तो ऐसा कुछ जो ग्रुप है वो आपराधिक होते हैं या जो देश के हित के खिलाफ होते हैं, तो ऐसे लोग भी जो जानबूझकर इस टाइम की जो है खबरें फैलाने की कोशिश करते हैं सोशल मीडिया, ताकि जो है शांति व्यवस्था भंग हो और आपस में दो गुटों के बीच में जो है, तो उसको कैसे रोका जा सकता है, क्योंकि ये सेंसिटिव भी है और इस पे एकदम कंट्रोल भी नहीं किया जा सकता है. धन्यवाद.
अगेन, बिल्कुल सही क्वेश्चन है, बिल्कुल करेक्ट क्वेश्चन है. द ओनली थिंग दैट वी कैन डू, हम क्या कर सकते हैं अपने लेवल से, इस जो मैं करती हूँ, क्वेश्चन कर सकते हैं कि इस सिचुएशन की क्रेडिबल. देखो, अगर फेक न्यूज परपेचुएट हो रही है तो क्रेडिबल न्यूज भी तो परपेचुएट हो सकती है ना. और दूसरा, सेंसिटिव मैनर्स पे रिएक्ट करने से पहले, अपना ओपिनियन देने से पहले, अगर वी कैन टेक अ स्टेप बैक एंड आस्क आवरसेल्फ, क्या हमारे पास टेम्परामेंट, पॉलिसी लेवल, टेक्निकल, साइंटिफिक नॉलेज या डिफेंस नॉलेज है इस चीज को शेयर करने की? अगर नहीं है तो पढ़ लेते हैं इसके बारे में। न्यूज आती जाती रहती है। मुझे लगता है अगर हम उस मोमेंटम में किसी चीज को पुश करने का काफी क्वेश्चन करते रहते हैं विदाउट वेटिंग, विदाउट बीइंग पेशेंट, तब क्राइसिस होता है। और अगर रही बात, आप एक ग्रुप में हो जहाँ पे बहुत सारी इंफॉर्मेशन इज बीइंग परपेचुएटेड, मुझे जेन्युइनली लगता है इट टेक्स समटाइम्स ओनली वन पर्सन, एक इंसान का एक सही क्वेश्चन काफी लोगों को इंटरनली ये सोचने में क्वेश्चन कर देता है कि क्या मैं जो शेयर कर रहा हूँ वो एक्चुअली सही है या नहीं। अगेन, इसका कोई परफेक्ट सोल्यूशन नहीं है। पॉलिसी लेवल पे डिसइंफॉर्मेशन इतना कवर्ड भी नहीं रहता है, but the fact that people are asking this question is a step forward. So it will take some time, but I guess again that's something that I've repeated over and over again. Please take your own individual responsibility. That has to happen, and only then can step by step we can face misinformation in the country, whatever that might be. Thank you.
हमारी आवाज जा रही है सर? हमारी आवाज जा रही है? पहले तो बेटकर सर आपको बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद एक अच्छे विषय के साथ प्राची दी को जोड़ने के लिए। और प्राची दी को बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद क्योंकि आपने प्रेजेंटेशन के माध्यम से बहुत ही महत्वपूर्ण जानकारी साझा की। और सवाल तो दीदी नहीं है क्योंकि मैं भी मास कम्युनिकेशन की पढ़ाई करके निकला हूँ पीजी से, करीब मेरा 2 साल भी होने वाला है। लगभग न्यूज़ 24 में भी मैंने स्क्रिप्ट राइटर के तौर पर कई दिनों तक मैंने इंटर्नशिप तक कार्य को किया है। और मैंने आपका देखा कि आपने एनडीटीवी और टाइम्स ऑफ इंडिया में आपने भी एक समय दिया है अपना। तो कितनी बड़ी चुनौती होती है, ऐसे तो पत्रकार, ऐसा कोई भी विषय नहीं होता है जिसमें चुनौती नहीं होती, मगर पत्रकारिता में एक अलग तरह की चुनौतियों का सामना करना पड़ता है। और इस बीच में आपने जो कोविड-19 को कहूँ तो एक लपेटा है आपने, उसके बारे में जो जानकारी दिया है मुझे बहुत अच्छा लगा क्योंकि फेक न्यूज का जो उस दौर का जो सिलसिला मैंने देखा और जिस तरीके से डिजिटल प्लेटफॉर्म बढ़ रहे हैं, तो ऐसा नहीं है कि मैं कहूँ कि फेक न्यूज बढ़ रहा है और सही न्यूज का ज्ञात लोग नहीं कर पा रहे हैं। जैसे जैसे नए टूल्स आएंगे वैसे वैसे हम फेक न्यूज का दायरा भी बढ़ेगा, मगर ऐसा नहीं है, लोग समझते भी हैं और लोगों को समझाने वाले में से भी बहुत सारे मास कम्युनिकेशन के विद्यार्थी हैं जो यूट्यूब चैनल चालू करके उन्होंने लोगों के बीच गए और बताए। और मैंने इसे भली भांति मैंने देखा है। मैं एक ब्लॉक स्तर के पत्रकार की बात करूं या फिर जिला स्तर की बात करूं तो सब जगह की स्थिति वहीं की वहीं आकर अटक जाती है। मगर आपने जिस तरीके से आपने प्रेजेंटेशन में मोटिवेट किया, हम जैसे जैसे मास कम्युनिकेशन के स्टूडेंट जो इस यूट्यूब चैनल को देखेंगे और इससे जो सीखने के लिए मिलेगा, दीदी ये वाकई बहुत बड़ी बात होगी क्योंकि आपका प्रेजेंटेशन बहुत ही न्यू था। क्योंकि जब मैंने विषय को देखा तो ये कोविड-19 से रिलेटेड 2-3 साल बीत गए दीदी, लेकिन अभी तक वो एक जो महामारी का वो जो दौर है ना, वो आज भी दिल में, और वो दौर याद करता हूँ तो बहुत आंख में आंसू आता है, इसलिए कि उस कवरेज के दौरान मैं भी फील्ड में मौजूद था। तो इसलिए प्राची दीदी आपको मैं क्या कहूँ, ऐसे तो देश के हर काम में सभी लोगों का योगदान होता है और मीडिया भी अपनी भूमिका कम नहीं निभाता है। इसके लिए मैं आपको सल्यूट करता हूँ क्योंकि आपने वाकई मैंने देखा कि आपका, मैंने जैसे देखा प्राची दीदी आपका अभी जस्ट मैंने नाम देखा, उसके बाद मैंने सर्च मारा तो मैंने देखा कि आपका एनडीटीवी और टाइम्स ऑफ इंडिया में भी आपने एक समय दिया है और आप हिंदी भाषा में हम लोगों को एक अच्छे से समझाई यहाँ पे। ये बहुत अच्छा लगा दीदी, बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद।
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. मास कॉम के स्टूडेंट्स, क्योंकि मैं भी मास कॉम की स्टूडेंट थी, फिर रिसर्च में आई थॉट कि मैं रिसर्च में चली जाती हूँ बिकॉज आई हैव रिसर्च स्किल. सो इट्स अ टफ टाइम बट कंटिन्यू टॉकिंग टू डिफरेंट पीपल, कंटिन्यू मीटिंग आउट, एंड आई एम ऑल्सो लर्निंग. सो आई एम लर्निंग फ्रॉम एवरीबडी हियर. So thank you so much for your inputs. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
इस वादे के साथ मैम को आप दीदी को छोड़ें बेदकर सर कि अगली बार किसी अन्य विषय के साथ प्राची दीदी इस प्लेटफॉर्म पर जरूर उपलब्ध होंगी, क्योंकि इस तरह का सेशन होने से जो मास कम्युनिकेशन के जो विद्यार्थी हैं, क्योंकि आज का दौर मास कम्युनिकेशन के सिर्फ विद्यार्थियों के लिए नहीं, क्योंकि सिटीजन जर्नलिज्म को देखा जाए तो हर आदमी पत्रकार है, क्योंकि हर आदमी के हाथ में मोबाइल है और ऐसे अवेयरनेस बीच बीच में होते रहने चाहिए। क्योंकि मैं तो समझता हूँ कि जो विद्यार्थी जो जैसे जो 6, 7, 8 के जो विद्यार्थी हैं, इसकी पढ़ाई वहां से स्टार्ट हो जानी चाहिए, क्योंकि ताकि उन लोगों तक इसकी जानकारी होगी। तो मुझे लगता है कि फेक न्यूज जो संबंधित जो बातें उपलब्ध होती है, ये समस्याएं जरूर हमें लगता है कि 50% पर तो जरूर आ जाएगी। और जो आंकड़ा अभी दिन प्रतिदिन जिस तरीके से बढ़ रहा है, क्योंकि होता कुछ नहीं है, जब एक फेक न्यूज डाल दिया जाता है तो उसे शेयर करने वाले, अगर मैंने एक ग्रुप बनाया उसमें 100 लोग हैं तो उसमें सभी लोगों की अपनी अपनी एक मानसिकता है, उसके अनुसार वो शेयर कर देते हैं। वो समझ नहीं पाते कि इसकी फैक्ट चेकिंग क्या सही है क्या गलत है। और बात रहा दीदी प्राची दीदी की रिसर्च का, तो पत्रकारिता के जो विद्यार्थी हैं, अगर पत्रकारिता की पढ़ाई करते हैं तो मैं समझता हूं कि ऑलरेडी उसी दिन से रिसर्च स्टार्ट हो जाता है हम लोगों का। तो मैं समझता हूं कि रिसर्च कोई पीएचडी करने के लिए नहीं, आप स्टूडेंट लाइफ में भी जितना ज्यादा रिसर्च अपने फैकल्टी में करेंगे तो मुझे लगता है कि आने वाले समय में एक बेहतर जगह पे पहुंचने का भी अवसर मिलेगा। और बेदकर सर के प्रोग्राम से मैंने सीखा है, रिसर्च ऐसा नहीं है कि कोई जर्नलिज्म है तो उसमें ही कर सकता है, हो सकता है कोई एग्रीकल्चर में भी जर्नलिज्म अच्छा कर सकता है, कोई मेडिकल लाइन में जर्नलिज्म अच्छा कर सकता है। और मुझे लगता है मेरे देश में ऐसे ही इस अलग अलग फैकल्टी के जर्नलिज्म की आवश्यकता है, तब जाकर मुझे लगता है कि पूर्ण रूप से सही मायने में पत्रकारिता भी हो पाएगी और जनहित में पत्रकारिता हो पाएगी। इसीलिए प्राची दीदी आपसे एक वादा लेना चाहूंगा, क्योंकि अगर कभी भी अगर कोई एक ऐसा विषय हो जर्नलिज्म से संबंधित तो आप बेदकर से संपर्क करके आप यहाँ अवश्य अपनी बातों को रखें, ताकि इस चैनल के माध्यम से सभी लोग कुछ जागरूक भी हो सके, और खासकर जो मीडिया के विद्यार्थी हैं वो तो होंगे ही होंगे। धन्यवाद।
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you so much.